Okay, so it's been a little while since we had a lecture because you've been working on your alternative energy sources essay. And last night, or yesterday afternoon, your rough draft was due by 5 p.m. So for those of you that handed it in, thank you. The rough draft is worth 15% of the final grade for this paper. So it's very important that if you didn't hand it in by 5 p.m. today or yesterday, that you hand it in by 4:59 today, so that you don't get a 0, so you don't get minus 15%. Because if you don't hand in the rough draft, the highest score you can get is going to be an 85%. I will get the edits back to you by Friday. Those who handed in their papers first will get their edits back first. And then your final draft will be due by 5 p.m. next Monday, which is the 19th of April. Okay, so let's go back and look at what we've covered so far in this section so that we know we're on our last part of this section, which is about animal agriculture. So that's going to be the last thing I lecture about. And then on Friday and Monday, we are going to watch a documentary, and you will be doing an assignment at the same time. And then we will be done with the whole section, and we'll do a review next week, and your Chapter 8 quiz is coming up. Okay, so remember we talked about, at the very beginning, climate change. We talked about the Earth's climate. We talked about the greenhouse effect and what that is. And remember that we have the natural greenhouse effect that is good for the Earth, and then we have our human-enhanced greenhouse effect, which is not so good for the Earth. And we explained all about what that is, the negative consequences of climate change and global warming. We talked about the biggest contributors to global warming. We already talked about general pollution and waste. We talked about all of those different energy sources, the non-renewable energy source. The main one that we use is fossil fuels, remember? And now we're going to be moving on to animal agriculture. So contributors to global warming, talked about general waste and pollution, like I said. Energy resources, using non-renewable resources. We talked about how fossil fuels are formed. We talked about the three main types of fossil fuels. We talked about why fossil fuels are negative for the environment. We have lots of different reasons, remember. We have, for example, when we burn the fossil fuels, we have a big, massive air pollution that occurs. And then when we extract fossil fuels, remember it's like oils in the ground, unless we're looking at coal, but if we extract oil from the ground or from the ocean, we have these three main ways that we extract oil, and all of them come with very negative consequences for the environment. Sorry, I shouldn't say extract oil, right? Because mining is for coal. That's one of our three main types of our three main types of fossil fuels. So when we extract any of those types of fossil fuels, they all come with negative consequences for the environment. Then we talked about alternatives to fossil fuels, and this is what you just handed in your paper on. These renewable energy sources. We have nuclear energy, and we talked a lot about that. We talked, I think, most in depth about that one. So for each one, remember, we talked about what it is, how it's done. Then we talked about, is it better than fossil fuels, and the environmental impacts for each of those. We talked about solar energy, same thing. We talked about hydro, electricity, and wind power. And finally, we talked about geothermal energy. All right. And then we talked about our comparative essay. So now here we are. We are going to be talking about animal agriculture today. And I think we will cover half of this section today and the other half tomorrow. All right, so what is animal agriculture and what does it include? Animal agriculture is the practice. What is it? We're going to say, let's do this right here. What is animal agriculture? It is the practice of breeding, raising, and slaughtering animals slash animal, we'll say animals for human use and consumption. All right, so we have lots of different types of animal agriculture. We have dairy farming. Let's start with the animals. We have poultry farming, which is the raising of chickens for meat and eggs. We have beef. We'll say, what are we going to call this? We're going to call it livestock farming. No, because livestock also includes chickens. All right, we'll just say cattle and pig farming. We're going to individually do that. Cattle, pig farming. And this is specifically for meat, because we also have the dairy industry, dairy farming. And this is specifically for milk from cows generally. Sometimes goats as well is the most common. And this is obviously used for dairy products like cheese, like milk we drink, like cream, etc. All sorts of anything that has dairy in it is obviously part of dairy farming. Okay, so these are the main. Oh, we also have fish farming. Fish farming, which sounds crazy, but this is like fish and all seafood, such as crab, shrimp, oysters, all of these things. We actually have oyster farms and shrimp farms and all sorts of different places where these animals are bred and raised for eventual human consumption. Okay, so when you think of animal agriculture, I want you to think of, here, let's show some pictures, that might be best. So I'm not talking about nice, beautiful, I mean, this still can include free range animals. This is just, these are the factory farms that I'm talking about, but we can also actually include free range, meaning like this. Right, so even farming with all of these animals, even if they're not, smashed into these horrible, which I think we can all agree this is not something we like to look at, not something we like to think about. I'm not 100% sure what the situation is in Mauritania. I would say that I don't know exactly what it's like, but in the West, this is how in all of Europe, in America, in Canada, in many parts of Asia, this is the kind of farming we're seeing. It's not so much this nice, free-range, open, more happy to look at kind of situation. But the point is, when I'm talking about animal agriculture, I'm talking about this and this, as well as all of these. Okay, so it's all included. So, as I said before, this is not a lecture of we should be vegan, bro. I am just your science teacher, and I am here to present you the facts. And the fact is that animal agriculture, all sorts of animal agriculture, contributes to climate change and damage to the environment in big ways. No matter how nice we're trying to do it for the animal, it's not about being necessarily nice to the animals. I mean, I think it's better, but I've been guilty of eating a chicken nugget that I'm pretty sure was not, nice in this beautiful picture over here. So I'm not talking about like animal welfare here. I'm just talking about the way that we factory farm or farm in general. So how does animal agriculture contribute to climate change, and how does it damage the environment? There's three main ways. We have pollution, deforestation, and in general environmental degradation, and species extinction. So we're going to go over all three of those in depth. So the first one we need to talk about is the different types of pollution that is caused by animal agriculture. So first we have air pollution. So in a not very small way, in a pretty significant way, animals, when they, sorry, this is unpleasant, but we're going to talk about farts. When animals fart, when animals belch, burping is another word for, belch is another word for burp. So when they release gases from their body, no matter what end we're talking about, these gases that are released have what this gas called methane. And remember that methane is one of those greenhouse gases that contributes to the human-enhanced greenhouse effect. Remember this picture of the human-enhanced greenhouse effect? So methane is CH4. It's a chemical, and its chemical formula is carbon, C, H, hydrogen, and 4. So we have 4 hydrogens. This is methane. This is a gas that when it is released into the air, it in large amounts, it can contribute to the human-enhanced greenhouse effect by causing this layer of greenhouse gases to thicken. All right. Okay. So cows, large animals, they release methane from in their bodily functions when they're releasing any air from their body. Methane, a lot of methane is there. And if we have a big factory farm, right, with all of these cows or all of these turkeys or chickens or pigs or whatever it is, I mean, we're talking like hundreds of cows. And this is just at one location. Let's talk about America, because that's what I'm most familiar with, and you're at an American high school. So in America, there are 250,000 factory farms. So farms like this, not even talking about all of the free-range, nice, beautiful farms like this. So there are 250,000 factory farms in America. So if each one of those has just 100 cows, which most of them have way more than that, if each one of them just has 100 cows, we're talking 25 million cows. And that is a low ball. We say a low ball estimate, meaning a very low estimate. 25 million cows exist right now, let's say, in America. So I'm going to write some notes here. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just talking. All right. So livestock releases methane in their burps and flatulence, aka farts, that is added to the greenhouse gas blanket. It might not seem like that big of a deal, but like I just said, let's say that there are 25 million just cows, okay? Out of those 250,000 farms, if we multiply 100 cows per farm, which I said is low, we end up with 25 million cows, okay? So in one single day, a ruminant, which is what a cow is, can produce 250 to 500 liters of methane per day. So this is an important note here. Let's bring it over here. I'm going to move everything down so I have more space, actually, sorry. There, that's a little nicer. One cow releases between 250 and 500 liters of methane every single day in their farts and their burps. To put that number in perspective, a regular household bathtub uses between 50 and 150 liters of water per fill. So an average bathtub can hold anywhere from 50 to 150 liters. So this is in my mind, a lot more than, it's a lot for one single cow. So if we multiplied 25 million cows every day, releasing on the low end, let's say they each release 250 liters, every single one, that is over 6 billion liters of methane released just in one day. And we could also do this times 365 to figure out how much that is in 1 year, but I think you get the picture. This is a ton of methane, and this is only from cows that we're talking. So all of this methane gas, this is just in 1 day, and like I said, low ball estimate plus the low end of the scale, plus we're only talking about America. We're not even talking about all of the factory farms in all of the world. So all of that together contributes to air pollution, right? This is a lot of methane that's being pumped up into the atmosphere from these animals. And when we get to the documentary that we're going to be watching, you're going to get more specific numbers. I'm not going through numbers right now, but they're going to compare how much methane is released, or how much greenhouse gas is released with animals as opposed to all the cars in the world. And they're going to give you all of this data, and the worksheet that you're going to do while you're watching this documentary. You're going to fill out this information. There's going to be some valuable information that you're going to need to take note on that you'll see on your quiz, but it's all on the worksheet. But anyway, that's why I'm not going into like real numbers right now, because you're going to watch this documentary and it's going to be given to you there. Okay, so we have that's only one form of air pollution. We also have another form of air pollution that's caused by animal agriculture. And this is the pollution that's from the transportation of animals and animal products. So if we have a factory farm here, maybe the slaughterhouse is right over here. So we have to haul all of those cows over to there. And then maybe from the slaughterhouse, the person that's going to package the meat, maybe it's just right next door, but it's a small little drive, a transfer. We have to use vehicles to transfer. And then once it's all ready to be sent to grocery stores or wherever it's going, it has to be transferred and delivered to all of these different grocery stores, right? So there's a lot of greenhouse gases from the cars there involved in the transport of the animals and of these animal products, meaning cheese or milk or whatever it is. All right, so those are the two main types of air pollution that I'm interested in, or that we are interested in. So we have methane pollution and then transportation of animals and animal products. So this is vehicle pollution, we'll say. Or we'll just call it transportation pollution, okay? So, transportation pollution. Yeah. All right. Then we have waste pollution. This one is not as intense as the air pollution or the water pollution, but we also think about how meat is meat and cheeses and milk, how all of these things are packaged. They're all packaged in non-renewable plastic stuff, right? Saran wrap kind of stuff, or plastic milk containers. This non-renewable packaging and the way that we manufacture this non-renewable packaging. Remember that when we were talking about all of the different types of fossil fuels, when we make plastics, this is also damaging to the environment. The production of plastics. Styrofoam, for example, this is often used as a way to package animal products. These are all non-renewable packaging. This is all non-renewable packaging, like plastic and styrofoam, etc. Styrofoam. This is damaging to the environment because it's not going to recycle, right? It's not going to recycle. It's not going to degrade. It's not non-recyclable. So it's damaging because it's not, we can't recycle. It doesn't degrade, meaning it's going to end up sitting around for thousands of years in landfills, or it's going to end up in the ocean, which is also a whole nother situation. But it doesn't degrade, and there's pollution involved with its manufacturing. All right, so this one is less, if you think about all of the plastic and stuff that's used for meat and dairy and all of this stuff every year, it is a lot, but it's not as damaging as the air pollution factors. And it's definitely not as damaging as the big one, which is the water pollution. So water pollution is a big problem with farms, with all farms. And the reason for that is because we have this thing called feces, which is poop and pee, runoff. Feces runoff. So if I have a farm, here's my farm, and it's a cattle farm. This is a cow, obviously, with his little head. There's a cow. Yes, that is a very good cow. Okay, there's my cow farm, and a little way away from the cow farm, there's a stream, or there's a pond, or there's some other body of water. So what happens is feces runoff is when the poop and pee from the cattle farm, or whatever farm we're talking about, gets into the stream water. This stream water, in this situation, any water that's at the surface of the earth is called surface water. Surface water. And this can be rivers, streams, ponds, whatever it is. So it can, the feces, the chemicals in the feces and the feces itself can get into the surface water, or it can sink down into the ground, and under the ground there's groundwater. There's water that fresh water that's under the ground, that it also leads to the ocean, or the streams eventually, but it can get into the stream either through this route, which is down through the groundwater and then into the stream, or it can get into the stream directly. So if it gets into the stream directly, that's surface water. If it goes through the groundwater, obviously that would be the groundwater route. All right, so why does this matter? What are we talking about? So this feces, it has chemicals in it. The feces contains chemicals. Feces contains chemicals, specifically lots of nitrogen and lots of phosphorus. Lots of nitrogen, which is N on the periodic table, and lots of phosphorus, which is P on the periodic table, right under nitrogen. So feces contains a lot of these chemicals. And when these chemicals get into the water, whether it's through the surface water route, going directly into surface water, or through the groundwater route, what happens is this phenomenon called eutrophication. I always spell this wrong, so I'm going to look. Eutrophication. And eutrophication is when plants grow wildly out of control in a stream or in the whatever body of water we're talking about. So let's write a real definition here. So eutrophication is excessive richness or amounts of nutrients in a body of water that causes a dense growth of plant life. All right, so why would that be bad? Why would eutrophication be bad? If we have a lot of plants in the water, that seems like it would be a good thing. Well, there are little tiny plants that float in the water, okay? So let's look at a picture of that. All right, so we have, don't worry about the names here. You don't need to know the names of all the stages here. You don't need to know any of this info. Okay, so we have this normal pond here, and there are little tiny plants, like I said. There are little algae that exist in the water normally. And that's good. They need to be there because the bigger fish eat them, insects eat them, etc. The problem is when we have feces runoff, we have feces and all of that nutrients, some nutrients getting into this whatever body of water this is. What happens then is these algal blooms, or these little plants that live in the water that really like these nutrients, start reproducing way more, because if we have more food, we can reproduce more. So they start reproducing way more, until you see over here that there's so many that it blocks out sunlight, and it kind of blocks out everything else from the body of water, which causes the fish to die. It causes plants at the bottom to die, other plants that live there. The reason that it causes this is because of a process. It causes what's called hypoxia. Causes hypoxia. And hypoxia is depletion, or getting rid of oxygen. Depletion of oxygen. And fish require oxygen, right? Fish actually need, they don't breathe in air the way that we do, but there's dissolved oxygen in the water, and fish actually need that, and other aquatic life need oxygen in order to survive. So what happens is when we add all of these extra chemicals from feces runoff into water, we cause eutrophication, which is the really excessive growth of little plants, little floating plants, little algal blooms, they're called, in the water, which causes hypoxia, or depletion of oxygen, because the algal blooms are using up the oxygen. They're kind of blocking the oxygen from getting to the fish or the other aquatic life. So this causes all of this together causes aquatic life to be severely damaged. So it causes severe damage to aquatic life. And what this can eventually lead to is what's called ocean dead zones. Can eventually, I'm going to just scoot all the way over, lead to ocean dead zones. And ocean dead zones, these are hypoxic areas, meaning areas where there's no oxygen, right? Because hypoxia is the depletion of oxygen. So hypoxic areas with no oxygen in the water, where no life is, we'll say no plants or animals, no plants or animals are able to survive. So in the last 40 years, we have had around 40 different 400 different dead zones develop all throughout the world, and you'll see a lot of them are in around Western places, right, where we have the most farming, like Europe and America, and not so much down here where factory farming is not such a big deal. So go Africa, good job. But Australia, parts of Asia, it's the same thing, right? So the places where we have the most dead zones are the places that we happen to have the most farming, right? So this is bad because we don't, if we remember, we've talked about this a little bit before, we don't want species to become extinct whether they're ocean species or land species, it doesn't matter, because everything is interconnected, and taking one member out of an ecosystem can cause the entire ecosystem to go in a downward spiral. So it's very bad that we are destroying all of these areas where nothing can grow, right? Or nothing lives. There are no fish. There are not many fish in these areas because they can't live there because there's not enough oxygen dissolved in the water. And this is a direct result of human factory and free-range farming. Big farms. I'm not talking about having 2 cows out in the, like it should be. That's okay. That's acceptable. But having 200 cows in one area is leading to this dilemma. So that is water pollution. I think, let me double check. I'm pretty sure that's all you need to know about water pollution in regards to animal agriculture. Yes. All right. Okay. So we are at 30 minutes. So tomorrow we're going to start talking about waste pollution and water pollution. So that's what, I was supposed to do, we already did this. What am I talking about? Sorry, we talked about waste pollution already, and we talked about water pollution already. This is where we will start tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about industrial crop fertilizers also. I forgot that part. We talked about feces runoff, but water pollution can also be caused by industrial crop fertilizers, which we need a way to feed all of these animals, right? So this is also directly a direct impact of animal agriculture, is having these big cornfields, for example, that we need in order to feed all the cows. Well, those fields require fertilizers, and we're going to use those fertilizers that have chemicals like nitrogen and phosphorus in them. Those chemicals get down into the water, whether through the groundwater or on the surface, and they lead to the exact same thing. They can also cause eutrophication and hypoxia. Okay, so I guess that's where we're ending today. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to start on talking about deforestation and environmental degradation and species extinction, and then we will be done with animal agriculture tomorrow at the end of class. Be sure you're taking lots of notes, because you're going to have to hand in all of your Section 8 notes tomorrow at the end of class. So make sure you've got all of those ready, because that's what we're doing. Let me know if you have any questions. For the remainder of the period, you're going to work on some topic or some questions, your Animal Agriculture Part 1 questions, and those will be due tomorrow before the start of class. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.